This gradually darkening finger holds an unfathomable power, the bald witch was just about to cast a spell with it when she was ambushed by a bird-headed, bare-bodied night owl. This mind-blowing fantasy film really left my jaw on the floor. The bizarre and wondrous creatures are utterly captivating, delivering a powerful visual shock that's hard to resist, especially that ancient, fire-breathing dragon. It might just upend your traditional view of Western dragons. No more spoilers. Let's dive into the movie. The story is set in the Forgotten Realms, guarded by red-robed wizards to prevent monster rampages. As a result, countless red-robed followers come to the altar every year to pray for blessings. However, reality is far from their idealized vision. For centuries, these red-robed wizards have harbored an evil plan to enslave all of humanity and rule the entire realm. The leader raised the dragon horn, and instantly, countless tentacles began to converge above it. At first, people thought this grand and eerie scene was just the beginning of a ritual. It wasn't until thick red smoke billowed from the dragon horn, engulfing the nearest people in a deadly silence, that the remaining crowd realized they were caught in a terrifying conspiracy. When they tried to flee, they found themselves ensnared by an impenetrable trap. As the red blood mist slowly dissipated from the dragon horn, all the souls were drained, turning everyone into undead soldiers for the red-robed wizards. The shocking conspiracy and brutal methods of these red-robed wizards soon drew the attention of various races. They rose up, forming an alliance to stop this catastrophe. After a fierce battle, a large number of red-robed wizards and their undead army were finally eliminated, and the dragon horn was permanently sealed in an oceanic treasure vault. However, some remnants concealed their hideous appearances and mingled among the common people, surviving to this day and often seeking revenge against those who joined the alliance. Ejin Darvis, a former member of the Harpers who fought against the undead army, encountered the red-robed wizard's revenge, resulting in the tragic death of his wife. Since then, Ejin lost faith in the alliance that failed to protect his family. He returned to his homeland with his newborn daughter, leading a life of poverty. It was then he met the brawny female barbarian, Helga Kilgore. Together, they started a life of theft. Years later, even Ejin's daughter joined their thieving crew. Their team also included the con artist Forge and the magic apprentice Simon. They had a principle: to steal from the rich without harming the innocent, earning them the name the Rogue Squad. But soon, they caught the attention of a mysterious woman named Safina, who was the leader of the remaining red-robed wizards. To revive the former glory of the red-robed wizards, she needed to retrieve the dragon horn and rebuild the undead army. However, only a member of the Harpers could open the oceanic vault. Safina disguised herself and approached Ejin, telling him about a resurrection stone that could bring his deceased wife back to life. Driven by hope, Ejin bid farewell to his only daughter and set off on a journey with his team. Under the cover of night, the group quietly approached the oceanic vault. Using the unique markings of the Harpers, Ejin easily opened the protective door. Safina effortlessly retrieved the dragon horn, while Ejin acquired the coveted resurrection stone. However, in his eagerness, Ejin accidentally snapped the web-like string attached to the stone. The next moment, a large number of guards were alerted and rushed to the scene. Safina, seeing this, cast a lightning spell to kill the guards instantly. While Ejin was still stunned by her methods, the remaining guards had already locked onto them with their swords. Safina, aiming to leave behind scapegoats, cast a time-stop spell to halt the attack and trapped Helga within the spell's field. Showing no intention of protecting her companions, the sorcerer Simon, fearing capture, chose to flee alone. Ejin, in an attempt to save his companions, was also caught in the spell and immobilized. In his last moment of mobility, he threw the resurrection stone to another teammate, asking them to take care of his daughter and keep the stone safe.
You have my word.
As expected, Ejin and Helga were captured by the guards and imprisoned in a towering, sky-high prison for 2 years. Despite the prison lacking walls, no one had ever successfully escaped. It was considered impenetrable, with prisoners being transported in chains to ensure they were securely moved along the tracks into their cells. According to tradition, every new prisoner had a chance to appeal for a reduced sentence. Years passed, and the two finally faced a prison tribunal for their appeal. Despite Ejin's eloquent arguments, he failed to persuade the Minotaur judge. Just as it seemed their appeal would fail and they would continue their imprisonment, a Birdman counselor entered. Seizing the opportunity, Ejin approached the counselor, pretending to be cooperative. Helga, understanding Ejin's plan, grabbed a bench and knocked out the guards, creating chaos. They then seized the moment, grabbing the Birdman and crashing out the window. Feeling the pull of gravity, the birdman suddenly remembered his wings. In the nick of time, he used his flight ability to save them from a fatal fall. Unfortunately, the combined weight of Ejin and Holga caused the birdman to crash and pass out. After confirming the birdman was alive, Holga quickly fled with Ejin, even stealing 2 horses along the way to hasten their escape. When they finally made it back to the city, they discovered that their former teammate Forge, with the help of the witch Safina, had become the ruler of Neverwinter. Over the years, Forge had manipulated Ejin's daughter, Kira, turning her against him and had no intention of returning the resurrection stone. Furious, Ejin and Holga confronted them, only to be trapped by Safina's mud spell, immobilizing them. Soon, guards hauled them to the city walls to face execution. In the nick of time, Holga pried loose a brick from the ground to block the blow. While Ejin frantically rubbed the rope against the steps, Holga swiftly dispatched all the surrounding guards. Escaping death, the two couldn't swallow their anger and began planning to rob Neverwinter's vault and overthrow Forge's rule. Realizing they were outnumbered, they sought help from their old rogue squad comrades. First, they found the hapless sorcerer Simon, who was entertaining a crowd with a performance while secretly pickpocketing them. Simon was stunned to see his former teammates who had escaped from prison, causing all the levitating stolen items to scatter to the ground.
He's nicking our bits and bobs!
The crowd, realizing they had been robbed, surged forward. In a panic, Simon tried to cast a shield spell but ended up casting a levitation spell instead, causing everyone to float to the ceiling. Realizing this wouldn't help, Simon quickly dispelled the magic, sending everyone crashing back down. The angry crowd turned on Simon, who frantically tried to cast another spell. This time, he managed to rocket himself into the air, only to lose control and crash through the roof, where Holga caught him as she passed by. The three of them regrouped and realized that breaking into Neverwinter's vault wouldn't be easy. They needed a druid who could shapeshift into various animals to aid them. Following Simon's lead, they arrived at an execution site just in time to see Forge's men about to execute an innocent woman. The druid was hidden among them. Suddenly, a soldier fell, and his horse transformed into an owlbear. The armored soldiers stood no chance and were swiftly defeated. To their surprise, this fierce beast was the shape-shifting druid they sought, though her weapon in human form was merely a simple slingshot. Once she activated her unique talent, she could freely transform into various shapes, whether a fly, a mouse, or a soaring hawk. He could switch forms at will. Having grown up an orphan, she was fortunately raised by the kind elves. However, since the hypocrite Forge took control of Neverwinter, he ordered his army to aggressively seize territories, even devastating the green forests that the elves relied on for survival. To protect his homeland, Doric often patrolled the forest edges, rescuing persecuted innocents whenever possible. Deeply resentful of Forge's evil rule, Doric accepted the Bard Ejin's invitation to join the Rogue Alliance, aiming to stop the Lord of Neverwinter's atrocities. Using his druid skills, Doric transformed into a fly to sneak into the castle and locate the Lord's vault. However, Safina, the witch by the Lord's side, quickly sensed something was amiss and revealed her hideous form with a furious roar. Lightning bolts flashed through the air, targeting the fly-formed Doric. Desperately flapping her wings, she fled into a collapsing pile of corn, transforming into a gray mouse to hide among the armor pieces in the passage, then reverted to her human form to blend in and escape. Unfortunately, passing guards recognized the unfamiliar face heading in the wrong direction and pursued her without hesitation. Doric quickly transformed back into a gray mouse and escaped. She ran into the prison, using the prisoners' bodies to leap out a window. During her free fall, she accidentally hit an outstretched flagpole, then transformed into a hawk to regain her balance and fly away. However, Safina had already sounded the alarm, and sharp swords were aimed at her from the high walls. In her frantic evasion, Doric crashed into a banner, unable to keep flying. Luckily, she transformed into a tabby cat, landing safely. Amid the stunned onlookers, she reverted to human form and nonchalantly walked out the door. Despite her efforts to hide her pointed ears under a cloak, she couldn't escape Safina's detection. Doric had to transform again, this time blending into a group of ostriches, but the witch saw through this disguise immediately. Realizing the danger, Doric swiftly turned into a more agile deer and bolted away. Even when an exploding pipe sent her flying, she endured the pain and struggled to her feet, staying far from the shapeshifting witch. After evading several deadly attacks, Doric finally managed to escape through the castle gate just before it closed. Though this journey was perilous, Doric managed to gather the crucial information they needed. It turned out that the witch colluding with Forge was indeed a member of the red-robed organization that had plagued the realm many years ago. Despite knowing Safina's malevolent nature, Forge chose to ally with her. This indicated that they were likely brewing an even bigger conspiracy. Additionally, Doric discovered that the Resurrection Stone engine had been desperately searching for was stored in Neverwinter's treasure vault. However, the special door protecting it was sealed with a glyph by the Archmage Mordenkainen. Just hearing Mordenkainen's name made Simon lose hope, as breaking the seal was believed impossible without the legendary Helm of Disjunction, known to negate magic. This powerful artifact had been missing for over a century, and even if found, Simon doubted his ability to wield it. Ejin, trying to maintain morale, encouraged Simon, saying that at least they had a glimmer of hope. Coincidentally, Holga's barbarian tribe had fought a war against the dragons over the Helm of Disjunction a century ago. Hearing this, Simon's eyes lit up, suggesting they might find clues about the helm by using a spell to awaken and question the fallen warriors. The team agreed and set off for the ancient battlefield. Meanwhile, Safina, not willing to give them any chances, secretly sent undead allies to follow and eliminate Ejin and his team at the right moment. The squad arrived at a picturesque village, where Holga encountered her ex-husband. Because of her relationship with him, she had been shunned and expelled from her tribe. During their conversation, Holga hinted at wanting to revisit acupuncture therapy, only to find that her ex-husband had a new family with one of her own tribe members, and they flaunted their affection right in front of her. Heartbroken, Holga retrieved her staff, which she had left behind when they divorced, and decided to leave. Ejin, seeing her distress, immediately stepped in with the comforting words of a bard, trying to console her.
Free wrong, well ye can, our toils can wait for a time.
Before long, the group arrived at the burial site. After much effort, they finally unearthed a grave, only to awaken a mute. Simon, knowing these ancient bones held a tremendous secret, was determined to awaken their souls, regardless of the cost. However, there was a catch. Each resurrected undead could only answer 5 questions before returning to the earth forever, unable to be revived again. Fortunately, these reanimated spirits had no combat ability. Eager to proceed, Ejin stepped forward to ask questions.
4 more questions, right?
Yes.
No, that wasn't for you. Did that count as a question?
Yes.
Why did you say okay at the end of that?
I didn't.
Reluctantly, the group continued searching for the next set of bones. The reanimated corpse slowly sat up, breathing the air of the living world after a century. This time, Ejin learned from his mistakes and directly asked about the helm. The revived spirit held nothing back. It revealed that 100 years ago, the barbarian tribe and the cult of the dragon fought over the helm in the Evermoors. Despite their superior numbers, the barbarians struggled to withstand the elusive, fire-breathing dragon. The chieftain had ordered his fastest warrior to take the helm and run.
Under section!
Unfortunately, the resurrected soldier couldn't recall what happened next. Ejin patted the spirit on the shoulder and let it rest in peace, then moved on to the next blind box. Simon reminded him that if he didn't ask all 5 questions, the spirit would be trapped forever. Feeling compassionate, Ejin asked a few simple math questions to fulfill the requirement. Thinking he had done a good deed, Ejin proceeded to the 3rd grave. This spirit had met a tragic end. In his final memory, the battle had gone poorly, and he had picked up the helm to retreat quickly. However, the spirit didn't know what happened next, as he died soon after. Despite their efforts yielding no useful information, they finally unearthed the last soldier who had touched the helm. Gravely injured and on the brink of death, he had encountered a man who claimed to be a paladin. The man's reassuring smile had put him at ease, and he willingly handed over the helm in his final moments. With this vital clue, the group finally had a lead. They immediately set off for the paladin's homeland, hoping to find the helm. Unexpectedly, they encountered a strange event along the way. A giant monstrous fish had swallowed a mother cat's kitten. The villagers were at a loss, but the paladin calmly removed his coat and stepped forward. With a saintly glow, he pacified the monstrous fish. After a moment of soothing, the fish obediently spat out the still-breathing kitten. Amid the villagers' cheers, the paladin, like a savior, returned the kitten to its mother and left without expecting any reward. Such acts of kindness were evidently routine for him. Seeing this, Ejin and his group were overjoyed and quickly approached him, explaining their quest to find the Helm of Disjunction to defeat the Lord of Neverwinter and the evil red-robed wizard. To their surprise, the paladin immediately agreed to help without hesitation. He revealed that he had personally witnessed the disaster caused by the red-robed wizards in his youth. The terrifying smoke from the dragon horn had nearly engulfed all his loved ones. Though he had escaped, the red mist left a painful, evil mark on his forehead. The paladin had been determined ever since to eradicate the red-robed wizards and bring light to every dark corner of the world. Wasting no time, he led the rogue squad into the dungeon to retrieve the Helm of Disjunction. He warned them of the many dangers, especially the brain-devouring monsters that seemed gentle but were vicious predators. Legend had it that these monsters specifically hunted high-intelligence creatures. As soon as the group of 5 entered the dim dungeon, they encountered one of these bizarre and terrifying creatures. Although they were not attacked, they felt deeply insulted by the encounter. Eventually, they arrived at the floating city, with the helm placed on the other side of a chasm.
Sorry.
Seeing Simon's helplessness, the paladin felt validated by the brain-devouring monster's earlier judgment. Simon, staring at the awkward situation, knew he had to find a solution. He noticed the staff Holga had retrieved from her ex-husband's home. Realizing it could create a teleportation portal, Simon used it to open a pathway across the 500-meter gap. Finally, they reached the other side. The paladin, relying on his memory, found the helm and, true to his word, handed it to Edgen.
This I give you now, trusting that you'll protect it with your very life.
I will.
Hold this.
This act of trust momentarily left the paladin speechless. However, before they could celebrate, a horde of undead minions sent by the red-robed wizards appeared. It was clear they had planned to ambush and kill the group to steal the helm. The paladin, refusing to let them succeed, launched an attack on the minions, easily defeating them. The undead leader then activated a flaming sword and engaged the paladin in close combat. Despite his efforts, the paladin managed to kill the leader but warned everyone to leave immediately, as the undead army would soon return. Just as they took a few steps, a sudden shockwave knocked them off their feet, and the ground trembled. A massive head emerged from a nearby dark cave. A huge creature had been awakened by the commotion. It was hard to tell if it was a pig with legs or a dragon that had gone off the rails, but the enraged and oversized red dragon began attacking indiscriminately. The undead army closest to it was wiped out in an instant. Edgen and the others fled in a new direction, desperate to escape. The dragon, too fat to stand, rolled after them. Doric almost met her end, but Simon, who had been keeping an eye on her, saved her just before the dragon's jaws could close around her. Enraged, the dragon attacked the stone bridge with fire, forcing the group to a dead end. Simon quickly opened a teleportation portal, and they escaped onto a suspension bridge. The dragon, furious at losing its prey, tried to follow. Its small wings couldn't support its massive body, and it managed to get one claw on the bridge. Using its short front paws, it grasped the bridge, causing Edgen and the others to slide down towards its waiting jaws. In a critical moment, the paladin leapt 10 meters, striking the dragon's forehead with his sword. The dragon, hurt and closing its mouth in the last moment, spared Edgen's life. The dragon, unable to support its weight, fell. As they prepared to leave, thinking they were finally safe, the dragon pursued them again. Fortunately, the cave ahead narrowed, trapping the dragon's head and leaving it stuck. Just as they were about to feel relieved, they realized they had reached a dead end. In its struggle, shattered the surrounding rock walls, causing a massive flood of lake water to pour in. At this rate, they were doomed. Edgen decided to risk everything on a desperate gamble. He instructed Holga to keep provoking the dragon. As the beast was about to unleash the swamp gas from its belly, the group quickly dove into the water. Sorcerer Simon seized the moment to ignite the gas, causing an explosion. Through the hole blasted in the cave ceiling, the 5 of them escaped. After reaching the shore, the paladin fulfilled his promise and helped them retrieve the Helm of Disjunction before saying goodbye to the rogue team. Now, all that remained was for Simon to activate the anti-magic helm, which would easily break the seal on the vault in Neverwinter. Feeling the weight of everyone's hopes on his shoulders, Simon put on the helm. The moment he did, his consciousness was pulled into a mental space where he saw his great-grandfather. To Simon's surprise, the old man quickly judged him to lack courage and confidence. He deemed Simon unworthy of wearing the helm and expelled him. Undeterred, Simon tried again and again, only to be thrown out each time, as the valuable artifact seemed unusable. Ejin suddenly had an idea to use a teleportation staff to bypass the vault door. For this, Simon needed a fixed point to cast the spell. Ejin bought an old painting from a street vendor, tore off the image, and had Simon create a portal on the frame. When the convoy carrying the treasures passed by, Ejin stuck the painting under the carriage. Simon then drew a teleportation circle on the ground nearby, which allowed them to easily remove the wooden planks from under the carriage, creating an opening. The guards outside had no idea what was happening. The shapeshifter Doric quickly transformed and entered the carriage. Just as she was about to pull the painting into the carriage, an unexpected event occurred. Luckily, Simon managed to grab Doric in time, holding the portal frame in place with his body while Holga pulled his feet from the other side, keeping them unnoticed. However, a soldier saw their awkward position on the hill and looked on in shock. With relentless effort, Doric finally retrieved the painting. She then placed the frame under the carriage and Holga quietly nailed the wooden planks back. Once the plan was successfully completed, Doric reattached the painting to hide the portal. Using her talent, Doric transformed into a fly and slipped through the cracks in the carriage. Once the painting with the portal was inside the fortress, the rogue team could silently take everything, but they hadn't anticipated that the painting would fall to the ground inside the vault. When they opened the portal with high hopes, they were met with solid stone flooring. Stunned, they tried everything but couldn't pry open the floor. With the plan falling apart, the sound of a loud horn came from outside. It signaled the start of Neverwinter's grand tournament. If Safina used the dragon horn to turn the spectators into an undead army, another disaster would unfold. In this critical moment, they split into two groups to try different approaches. Ejin and Holga, along with Simon, would force their way through the protective door. In a crisis, Simon might unlock his potential and master the Helm of Disjunction to break the seal. Doric stayed behind, ready to transform into an insect and slip through any crack that appeared. Just moments ago, Holga single-handedly held off all the castle guards to give Simon a clear path to the vault door. This time, Simon chose to put on the helm again. Entering the mental world, he mustered his courage and slapped his great-grandfather. Unexpectedly, this act earned the helm's approval, and his power surged. With ease, he broke the seal on the vault. On the other side, the druid girl transformed into a worm and burrowed into the portal just before the soldiers arrived. Only then did she discover that all the treasures in the vault had already been moved to the docks. Before she could alert her teammates, she was knocked unconscious by the soldiers. Meanwhile, Simon and Holga entered the vault, only to find it completely empty. They were then suddenly ensnared by the tentacles of a lurking octopus. Ejin intended to rescue his daughter, but the familiar face he saw across from him burst into eerie laughter and transformed into an ugly witch. It turned out that Safina and the Lord had long discovered their plan to infiltrate the vault. They had set a trap to capture the 4 members of the rogue squad in one fell swoop. To make those who opposed her feel true despair, Safina threw them into an arena, placing magic suppression cuffs on all of them, intending to force them into a deadly battle. The rules of this labyrinth arena were simple. Participants had to find the shelter cage in the center within a limited time while avoiding the murderous displacer beasts hunting them. If they failed to navigate the correct path before the maze contracted, death was certain. Randomly spawned chests in the passages provided some supplies. Facing the displacer beast that could create illusions, they had to quickly identify the real one or become its food. During their frantic run, the barbarian Holga spotted a newly spawned chest, but upon opening it, she was tightly entangled by the tongue extending from a mimic. Even with her immense strength, she couldn't fend off the disgusting creature with her bare hands. Luckily, at the critical moment, Doric arrived and sliced off the long tongue, allowing Holga to narrowly escape. As the two rushed deeper into the maze, another contestant suddenly appeared behind them, attempting to seize the opportunity, only to plunge headfirst into a gelatinous cube. Ironically, this allowed Doric to break free from the magical suppression cuff. Had she been a moment slower, her entire arm would have been corroded by the cube. Meanwhile, the isolated Ejin and his companion were also attacked. Ejin was backed into a corner, unable to discern that the beast before him was just a projection, with the real one sneaking up from the other side. As the maze continued to shrink, the 4 members of the rogue squad finally found the central shelter cage. Just as Ejin pulled open the iron door, he suddenly realized this was a battle royale. Not everyone in the cage could survive. Hearing this, Doric had an idea and led the group outside the maze, finding the gelatinous cube that had blocked their path earlier. As the bell for the next contraction of the maze rang out, everyone quickly jumped into the gelatinous cube. Taking advantage of the creature being recalled by the arena, Doric transformed into a green snake, slipped through the small opening, and reverted to human form to rescue her teammates before they were corroded. Seeing the opportune moment, Safina revealed her true form. She wielded the dragon horn and flew above the arena, intending to turn the entire city's population into undead puppets. The privileged spectators were the first to be engulfed by the deadly red mist from the dragon horn. Ejin, who had already escaped, felt a pang of guilt. He quickly devised a plan and had Simon use teleportation magic to transfer all the Lord's hoarded treasures onto a hot air balloon. As countless treasures rained down from the sky, the citizens lost interest in the arena and rushed towards the hot air balloon to collect the falling riches. When Safina finished her spell, she found the arena deserted and unleashed her fury on the meddling rogue squad. Fortunately, Simon cast a shield spell just in time to block her attack. The druid girl then transformed into an owl, flew towards the witch, and turned into a fierce horned owl, tackling Safina to the ground before she could react. Safina quickly cast a spell to animate a stone dragon statue and teleported to a higher vantage point. Ejin and his team heard the stone dragon come to life behind them. Holga, unafraid, charged at the dragon, while Simon assisted with magical attacks. The druid, in her bear-owl form, saved them just in time. However, her flesh and blood were no match for the stone dragon's hard body, and she was soon forced back into her original form. Holga rushed forward to draw the dragon's attention. At the critical moment, Ejin picked up a battle axe and jammed it into the dragon's mouth, only to have the axe bent by the creature's powerful bite. Facing the nearly invincible stone dragon, Doric came up with a plan. She grabbed a nearby ball of chili powder and, in a split second, shot it at the witch. With the dragon losing Safina's magical control, it reverted to a statue. Ejin and his companion quickly moved to stop Safina from continuing her spell but were hit by her magic bubbles. Doric, arriving just in time, tried to sneak up on Safina from behind but was scared off by the witch's bloody hand. Luckily, Simon intervened with a spell to block the bloody hand, allowing Doric to regroup. The two sides then engaged in an intense magical duel between good and evil. Unsurprisingly, Simon was slightly outmatched. After several rounds, his spells were completely shattered by the bloody hand, which grabbed him and threw him violently. Fortunately, Simon conjured a giant hand at the last moment, preventing himself from being crushed. Seeing that no one could single-handedly defeat the witch, the four members of the rogue squad launched a combined attack on Safina. Outnumbered, Safina struggled to defend herself, but this only enraged her further. In her fury, she cast a powerful time-stopping spell. As the circle of temporal stasis expanded, the rogue squad was immobilized, unable to move as Safina approached, her fingers darkening with necromantic energy. Just as she was about to turn Ejin into a puppet, the time-stopping spell suddenly failed. It turned out that Kira, wearing an invisibility necklace, had slipped a magic suppression cuff onto Safina's wrist. Before Safina could react, Doric seized the moment, transformed into a horned owl, and slammed into the witch, pinning her to the ground and unleashing a barrage of attacks. The once invincible witch was finally defeated. Although the crisis was averted, Holga had been gravely injured in the battle and seemed beyond saving. Kira, who had been raised by Holga, wept bitterly. In a moment of tough decision-making, Ejin decided to use the single opportunity he had to resurrect his wife to save Holga instead. He activated the resurrection stone with a spell, bringing Holga back to life after their long journey together. With peace restored, the film comes to an end.